Dear colleagues, welcome to discussion Strategic Resilience, Navigating Between Pandemics, War, Realities and Digital Innovation Sustainability Visions. We have already attended very interesting presentations covering part of the main topic of this conference. What is not covered yet, I think, it's the uncertainty. The title is Building Strategic Resilience in Times of Uncertainty. So we have attended high-quality presentations on cybersecurity, sustainability, resilience, strategic management, and so on, but nothing on uncertainty. And what is the uncertainty nowadays? Well, it is the war. Because if there was no war today, we should maybe not need cybersecurity, neither extra issues related to safety, to security. Okay, so I will present the implications of the war on a holistic approach from the geopolitical side, but also from economics and business. As pandemic continues to slow the growth prospects of the world economy, Russia's invasion to Ukraine changes the status quo of Europe, whatever is the outcome of the war. It is too late for Putin's governance to accept a diplomatic disengagement without further spoils him further and his hardliners. The end of the war will find Europe with difficult dilemmas that we'll have to face immediately. The growth rate will decrease from 1 to 2.5 points. It is now 6.4% in the USA, 2.1% in Europe in the third quarter of 2021, compared to the second quarter. Depending on how fast the war will de-escalate, inflation will increase from 2 to 3.5 points. In the USA, has already exceeded 7.6%. In Europe, 5.8%. While budget deficits will be real huge. If the scenarios are verified, Europe, more than the USA, faces the risk of stagflation in the coming period. And this is very important consequence in the European economy after the war. Inflation in the USA is mainly demand pull inflation, as opposed to European Union inflation, which is cost push inflation. Therefore, the proposed policies for dealing with it in the two regions are totally different. In the USA, the right measures have already been activated with gradual increases on interest rates by the Fed to curb monetary circulation. The European Union does not need measures to reduce monetary circulation, but target measures to reduce production costs or to boost workers' incomes. Measures to reduce production costs in Europe will strengthen the resilience of companies to survive, thus protecting jobs. Measures to boost workers' incomes will boost purchasing power to improve the standard of living of low-income countries, and compared to the first policy, which is the measures to reduce production costs, the second will have a much better overall effect on the growth of the economy due to the high income multiplier among low-income employees, as opposed to the first intervention that will not bring any increase in the rate of economic growth. The total amount of all kinds of measures supporting businesses will remain in the state, even if there are tax incentives, extension of repayment of repayable advances, etc., or will remain within businesses if there are measures related to tax cuts, VAT, etc. In contrast, measures to empower workers will have a multiplier effect due to the multiplier mechanism, with a visible imprint on growth without additional border on inflation. The choice of measures that will benefit both sides, companies and employees, without the risk of disruption of the fiscal space, is the ideal solution, and this should be the strategic goal of all European economies. The planning of measures on European level with the adoption of a new package to support member states from the consequences of the war and those corresponding to the pandemic is the ideal scenario for the European economies, provided that the amounts that will be allocated will not be calculated in their depth or in the rule of budgetary discipline. If the additional budgetary expenditure, whether in the form of budget support or as a special world development fund, is calculated in depth, the result will be the imposition of fiscal adjustment memoranda immediately after the end of the war, which should be ruled out from the outset. The anonymous decision required for such an agreement, and this agreement is not yet guaranteed. Remember, I mentioned in my introductory course that the veto initiative in organizations like European Union and NATO is in danger. And it is in danger because we have some member states in European Union which are against to adopt some decisions taken in Brussels. This war highlights the wrong energy policy of Europe, with its high dependence on Russian gas and oil at a rate of over 40% of its energy needs. It is lower in some countries, which will create huge problems in the economy with an immediate need for alternatives. And we have covered this issue, this problem, from the presentation of Professor Gratiela Noja, who described clearly what we need to do in the energy sector to save Europe. The supply of liquefied natural gas, LNG, from the USA, the lifting of the sanctions imposed in Venezuela and Iran in the past could be a solution. So, we have one alternative. The second alternative is to come back to lignite use. It's a positive development for some countries with excess of lignite, but negative for the environment. And the intensification of renewable energy sources will be issues that need immediate solution. The expected increases in energy products, transport costs, and supply chains, prices of raw materials, goods, and food, in combination with inflation created by the increase in consumption due to temporary improvement of income, leads with mathematical precision in a spiral effect of price increases, resurrecting the beast of inflation, to use a well-known term from modern economics, rather than the scorpion, which is another term for inflation, but this term leads to self-destruct. The beast will devour the income of the workers on a continuous basis without end, unless coordinated reverse measures will be taken. The economic sanctions imposed by the West in Russia are absolutely correct and substantial to push Russia out of the World Trade Organization, which is a negative effect for the cost of globalization. Since its inception in 1995, with the optimism of the post-Cold War era, the World Trade Organization has managed to attract almost all United Nations countries, with Putin's Russia signing in 2006 a decision that was celebrated from all sides. It was preceded by the introduction of China to World Trade Organization in 2001. This has created the single world, the global village, with many benefits for economies, businesses, and consumers. This war is going to destroy this global village. So we are going back to globalization, even if the sanctions against Russia are lifted in the future. European countries don't trust Russia anymore. It is time to think of new organizations, new balances, and new goals. Although there are no winners in any war, even the winner pays a high cost, this war has shown the following. Nominated the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, as a hero leader. Deconstruct President Putin and the power of Russia's military and political machine. And it is clear in all publications and all over the world. The European borders to the east are being redefined. Russia is isolated from the world. The conditions are being created for a definite solution to the energy problem in Europe. However, it is maybe time to reconsider the veto initiative to an increased majority vote. The relations of the countries in the Visegrad group with the rest of the countries of Europe were reheated in view of the common enemy. The need to create a European army, which was an issue for quite a long time, an issue, a Eurobond, was confirmed, even at the level of a preliminary idea. Usually it takes 6 months when a preliminary idea is on the table in Brussels. It takes 6 months to negotiate. NATO is awakening, and the need for immediate decisions in cases of hostilities is well defined. 2 former neutral and military countries, Finland and Sweden, have started the actions for joining NATO, which is the biggest military and geopolitical development since the collapse of the Soviet Union. The security of NATO member countries is shielded against any threat, a positive result for all member states. However, it is maybe time to reconsider this veto initiative also in NATO. either to majority vote or increase majority vote. USA sovereignty affirmed as the guarantor country of the world for peace and democracy. Turkey is isolated from the West and the USA, while at the same time it is blackmailed to take a position that will bring it to the fore or to the background accordingly. Some countries are gaining the trust of countries that have challenged their demands against others. Diplomacy is being upgraded internationally. This entails the diplomacy as a unique way to solve war tensions in the global political chessboard. Putin's government is getting in a difficult position to explain his military invasion to Ukraine, not only to world society, but also to his people. Russia is losing its glamorous reputation as a superpower, a democratic country, member of G8, permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, because it is not following the international laws, violating international treaties and the international safety and security. The collapse of the Soviet Union started in late 1980s, completed when the country broke up into 15 independent states on December 25th, 1991, should be an unforbidden lesson for Putin and his allies to remember. As far as the consequences of the war in education and sciences, I point out the following. It is time to reorganize study curricula and business models to include sustainability, climate change theories, resilience theories, cyber technologies, and so on. European study programs have to be expanded. Mobility initiatives have to be organized in a better way. For example, upon the completion of the program, the beneficiaries must disseminate the results to all European Union countries. Digitalization, energy, and social media have proved the main drivers in the evolution of the war. It is time to be the high priorities in universities' development agenda. Since globalization is stepping back, it is time to reconsider the world supply chains with a new satellite system for a better scheduling of available resources with a global organization responsible for the allocation to prevent food and energy crisis. Thank you for your attention. God saves Ukraine. We continue, or I may take, it is better to take the questions now, because for some reason we have to leave within the next 15, 20 minutes. So questions, please, and then we go to the next. Okay. Anyone in the audience or the panel? Okay, panel is Gratiela, Noja, Maditinos, Wolves, Paalzow, and Mavlutova. And Rector Paalzow, yes. Bert Golfs. Okay, welcome, sir. We just present the first.
Thank you, sir. I was passionately following your presentation.
So you may have questions. Okay, we start with you, sir.
My first question for you would be, how do you integrate the 17 SDG goals from United Nations into a business curriculum? Could you give me some examples or ideas about that? Thank you, sir.
Well, I just have the idea, and we have to work to find the solution. Because of this uncertainty, it is needed. So we have to find a way to adjust it. I don't have the exact question right now, but I think it's easy, depending on the curricula of each university. I know that in the United States, they have started thinking of new curricula.
May I have an intervention
Yes.
here? Yeah, actually, hello, I'm from West University of Timisoara in Romania, and we've already embedded the SDGs in our curriculum. Basically, we have, for example, in the bachelor program that relates to international economics, specialized courses that approach the world economy, and we do have a keen focus there on the SDGs. The first one related to poverty, right, zero hunger, but also the one that relates to sustainability, sustainable development, and so on. So we do have various courses that approach these topics for the bachelor programs related to international economics.
Okay? All right.
May
Yes,
I?
Professor
Thank you so
Maditinos.
much.
Hello. I'm Dimitrios Maditinos. I'm coming from Greece, from the International Hellenic University. And I would like to tell you that in our curriculum, we have already incorporated security issues at the Department of Business and Technology. Our students have the opportunity to learn about security and cybersecurity in particular. Risk management and uncertainty are broadly discussed in our courses. We know that we have to change and to adapt to the new situation. We have already started. It's a good start, and this will be the beginning of improving and adapting the curriculum in the new situation and the new era.
Thank you, Dimitrios. Yes,
Yes.
Professor.
Afternoon. Yes, I'm Inese Mavlutova. I'm a professor of BA School of Business and Finance. We are host institution here. Yes, and also I'm leading researcher, but I'll tell you later about the results of my research. But when we discuss question about new curriculum, new programs, this year also changes were made into our finance program, and also we included cybersecurity course into this program, and as one of direction for deeper studying, also we provide this risk management and insurance.
Thank you. Yes, Professor.
Is it on? Oh, I take this one. Looks. Yeah, thanks. Anders Paalzow, Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. Yeah, I think it's very interesting and very important. We saw your list on topics. What I would like to add, which I think recent experience has shown, that we also have to have a bit of ethics, we have to have a bit of philosophy, because things are not nowadays not as black as white as they were prior to the war, that we have to face trade-offs, and one not directly related to ESG, but prior to the war it was a no-no to have a sustainable pension fund investing in defense industry. But now we see what is the cost of not having a defense industry? What is the cost of not having military? Same thing, and I hope there are no Germans here, because I will use the German case, but we already know when Nord Stream, which was highly controversial, in particular in this part of the world, we already know who was in government in Russia, and Germany signed up for that one, and is it really worth, if I kind of simplify it extremely, but still to make the case that we kind of turned off the nuclear power, we start buying gas that now supports the war in Ukraine. So there are those dimensions that are extremely difficult, where I think you need not only business, but you also need some ethics and moral philosophy. Thanks.
I totally agree with you. Yes, ethics is also first priority, not only in education, but also in the society. So we have to be very careful with ethics. And any other question?
And I would add universal human rights as well. Should be part of the curriculum, because we took it as selbstverständlich in German, but now we see that there is a lot of work to be done, and even business students should be more aware about that.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, of course. Any other question, please?
To add something more about the curriculum. We have already established a small but very effective lab on cybersecurity, and especially on forensics. And this is the number 2 in the country. So we are working on it, very effective and with good results. And from the other side, I would like to agree with the rector here about the ethics and about how to approach the solutions, because it's very sensitive from both sides to agree that this war will take an end. This is the most important thing. The academia must support with new ideas, with fresh ideas, with a way of both parties will be somehow happy, and to finalize it, because in the coming months, I think in the winter, the problem will be bigger with energy and so on.
Any other question? Okay, we move on with the presentation by Dr. Bert Walls online. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir. I will try here to share my presentation, which, of course, it's always Murphy's Law. But for some reason, I can't bring it up.
Sorry, sir, we have to leave because we have an obligation
Okay,
with the rector.
I will.
Okay, and we must be on time. Okay, so.
So I will make it short then. And basically, what I wanted to talk about is what are the COVID lessons learned from Switzerland, majorly because we are a non-European Union country. And I would like to do that with the impact on business models. And if we look at the Swiss situation, yes, we were prepared, but we were not prepared properly, in the sense that we had an outdated pandemic plan, which was made 10 years ago and was not adapted towards the economic challenges and technological challenges which the pandemic, the outbreak of COVID-19 has caused. One simple example, a lot of hospitals were still sending per fax the amount of COVID patients per day to the Ministry of Health. In times of where everybody's talking about digitalization, this is a little bit painful. Also, at the beginning, we made some mistakes. We had a person who was responsible for managing the outbreak, and he said during one of the press conferences that we should not wear a mask, which of course later turned out to be a mistake. I think one thing what we all have learned from the COVID-19 crisis is that the lockdowns of schools is not really a smart idea. It's not a smart idea because Intellectually, our students were not that challenged anymore online as by face-to-face. Plus, a lot of parents had to stay at home because there was nobody who was taking care of the children. So if the parents are staying at home, automatically it has an impact on the GDP of countries. What did we do in Switzerland? In Switzerland, we have 96% of our companies, which are small and medium-sized companies. And it was shocking, but really shocking to see that after 15 days, a lot of companies already went bust for the very simple reason that they did not build enough cash reserves. So I think if you want to remember one thing from this presentation is, if there is a crisis, it's all about cash management. Make sure you have a positive cash flow. Make sure you have enough of reserves that at least 6 months the business can survive without additional income. And of course, it's one of the challenges which managers have is if there is a crisis, it's very difficult to predict how long it will take, but cash management is the absolute priority for any business to survive. In Switzerland, our government was very generous because they came up immediately already on March 22nd in 2019 with a plan which was called the COVID-19 loans. So those businesses which probably had a chance to survive but had not enough cash reserves were able to take a loan interest-free from the government. Of course, they had to pay back the loan, but it was interest free, and we spent about 2.4% of the Swiss GDP to help to survive these companies, which at the end of the day, 20% of our small and medium-sized companies took benefit of that. Second question, or second part of the question, was what related to the financial markets. And if you can see the slide here, I tried to make, together with my friend Bruce Fraser from the University of San Francisco, we made here a slide in which we compare the Dow Jones performance from 1917 to 1920 during the time of the Spanish flu. And we made a comparison towards the NASDAQ 100, the most important technological companies, from March 2019 until 2022. And interesting to see is that, again, in March 2019, it was the absolute bottom of the market, for example, for the NASDAQ, and it took 606 days in order to reach the peak of the market. If we compare that to the Dow Jones performance in 1917 to 1920, it took from the bottom 685 days to reach the peak. So don't say that history doesn't repeat itself, and don't say that humans don't behave in the same way. What do we need to know is that since the peak has reached, obviously the markets, financial markets, and we're talking here about the United States as major financial market of the world, they went down 20 to 30%, being it today a bear market or not. But the good news, and that, Mr. Chairman, is as a follow-up on your presentation, is that in the United States, the inflation will peak probably in mid-July. And what is the lesson to be learned? If inflation peaks, that's the right time to buy stocks again, because that's a sign that the bottom of the market has been reached. Thirdly, if we talk quickly about business models, and if we talk about the crisis, well, if we look at China, the word crisis in Chinese has a double meaning. One hand, of course, it is negative, but on the other hand, it's also something positive. Our view, our Western European and European view, is that a crisis is a change is impending. Or as Paul Romer said it in 2004, never waste a crisis on a terrible thing. A business model is a little bit more complicated to define. Why? Because even if you read 50 academic articles, there is no agreement about what is really a business model. So it's one of the most sloppy terms I have encountered in my life. I take a definition from Margareta in 2002, which says a business model is the story that explains how enterprises work, or a definition from professor from the University of Lausanne, Osterwalder. What is the business model is how does an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. I took here the business model, which is basically consisting of 9 different models. And obviously, during times of crisis, all these different elements are affected. Most common for businesses is that revenue streams are not at the same amount anymore, and costs remain the same, or even costs are improving. If you look at your customers, your existing customers will not have the same buying capacity as they used to have before the crisis. So what do? Will you continue to serve them, or will you already start to look for new customers? And probably the most important for every CEO or entrepreneur is how do you remain important? How do you remain on the top of the head in the mind of your customers by giving value proposition? What did we come up with? Well, we came up with post-crisis business models or crisis business models, which we try to divide in 2 major blocks. On the left side of the slide, you can see the so-called resilient business models. And Professor said that you already talked extensively about resilience, so I'm not going to repeat what it is all about. It is simply said, it's just the capacity to respond to change. But on the other hand, we also talk about vulnerable business models. And these are business models which need outside help. We try to categorize these resilient business models into 4 subcategories. The first one is called anti-fragile, which is that, believe it or not, certain businesses are performing much better during a crisis than before or after the crisis. Because what they see is, let's all face it, we have to do an investment in digitalization. We have to look for extra storage. No, let's wait because it's very expensive. But during the crisis, suddenly there is a need, and then the investments are very quickly made and the necessary actions are taken with immediate effect so that the overall business still performs better. The second one is a robust business model, which is a term coming from Crete in 2013, where the most important thing is, no matter what happens, try to remain operational. Keep your business going under any circumstances, under very difficult circumstances, but make sure your business is open, either virtually, either face-to-face, but you can provide your customers the needed services and products. The third resilient business model is called adaptive business models. These are those companies who see the crisis as an opportunity and immediately spot new opportunities. You have textile companies which used to make shirts, trousers, which suddenly overnight start to make masks and start to sell masks. This is an adaptive business model. And the last one is the suspended business model. That is temporary closures. I'm sure we don't have to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on tourism in Greece, on tourism in Latvia. I think everybody can tell encyclopedia about that experience. The key thing here is you must secure capital for the company and you must secure HR. You must make sure that people continue to work for you. They got the training, even eventually improve the training, so that when the crisis is over, you can start again. On the right side, then you have the vulnerable business models. It's those businesses who will not survive if they don't get external help. The so-called aided business models, where the government needs to intervene and gives them financial support, which I try to illustrate in my introduction by the Swiss case. And the second one of the vulnerable business models are the retired business models. They finally have to say, okay, we will not survive. Even if we survive the crisis, the cost will be too much. There is no further opportunity and we have to close down. So, dear Mr. Chairman, since the time is limited, here is my conclusion. What are the lessons learned, not only from COVID, but also from Spanish flu and other kind of crises? Continue to invest in healthcare. Time spans is for every manager, for every entrepreneur, the most difficult thing to manage during the crisis, because nobody knows how long the crisis will last, and this uncertainty is a killer for a lot of businesses. Make a difference of facing challenges during a crisis and facing challenges because of the crisis. The mindset, psychological impact is different. We need to be better prepared for business crises or crises in general, even wars. We need to be better prepared. But this, of course, requires investments and managerial attention. I think we all have understood that we need to think constantly risk management. Communication with all your stakeholders is very important. And I think I also want to give some flowers at the end of the day to my government, Swiss government, because what they did is during COVID, they had 3 press conferences per week. So they were constantly informing the public, and almost whole Switzerland was watching these press conferences live in order to know what's going on. And the last thing which I wanted to say is crisis needs also attention to the psychological stage of your stakeholders. And I think from all the crises which we have studied, many times this is forgotten. Thank you so much for the opportunity and wishing you a good continuation of the discussion.
Wolves, because some changes took place while you were speaking. We have a good panel and new members for the panel. Maybe meanwhile I introduce who is now sitting and who will be asking questions to you based on your presentation. So we have here Dr. Also Paalzow, rector of Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. And also we have a Dr. and Professor Arnis Sauka from the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga as well. And we have also a colleague from Dr. Eli, from Professor from Business and Technology University from Georgia, and Professor Mavlutova from BA School of Business and Finance. And now I would like to ask panels to ask questions and or maybe some reflections of Dr. Wolf's presentation. What are your maybe some feedback or what you have listened carefully and maybe you would like to reflect on what's been said. So please. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Is it? It's fine. Yep, perfect. Yes. So thanks a lot for a very, very good and introduction to the topic. What I would like to really build on is that we have to rethink risk management, because there have been two kind of little thinking about what do they call them? Low probability, high negative impact events. And I think we have all thought that kind of this 1% or a tenth of a percentage point is something that will never happen. And now we have had 2 of those events actually following each other. So that is a lesson for everyone, but I think it's very much a lesson actually for us educators, because we've been living in a too good world maybe during the last 30 years. So we have forgotten about the negative outcomes and the consequences. And as you mentioned, very few companies have enough cash to survive just a few months without any income. So really appreciate that point. Thanks.
Yes, please, Professor Sauka.
Sir.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. Very nice classification of different business models, and also you highlighted some of the challenges that comes out due to the context and due to the fact that we, as Anders said, sometimes forget things. because we live maybe too well for a period of time. And in this context, perhaps we should remind ourselves when we are established companies, when we are thinking about these business models and how to change it, something that happened to some of us, at least, those who were startups, those who were approaching venture capitalists and risk capitalists, business angels for the funding. And what they are usually saying is that stop talking about your product, stop talking about yourself, think about your customer, right? And then if you do not do this, then you are not given money. So once you are given money, once you have started thinking about your customer, you sometimes, or we sometimes tend to forget about the customer. And this is where the problems with the business models maybe tend to start. And this is, I think this is both relevant for the private sector, but it is also relevant to the universities, right? We also have customers, lots of them. We had a discussion earlier today in another event. Is this a student who is our customer? It's probably the product rather than a customer. The real customer is somebody outside, the policymakers, the companies, the ones that we deliver our product in a same way. Us scholars, we are the product that is also developed within the universities, that we also bring it to somewhere else. And we could talk and discuss issues very similar also in the private sector. And then regardless of how we classify this, I think this is the main point that I wanted to say, regardless of how we classify those business models, as long as they are targeted to the customer, then they should be fine eventually, regardless of the context.
Thank you. Yes, and Professor Chkareuli.
Thank you very much for the very insightful presentation. I would look at that point from a different angle, as economics itself
Yes, maybe closer.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. So economics itself, it's pretty difficult subject to understand clearly for many people, I'm pretty sure. And it's not like chemistry that when you can like merge two different chemicals and receive the same material like anytime you merge them. In economics, when things happen like in different economic environments, it reflects in different circumstances and it causes different situations. So yes, we had pandemics before, yes, we had wars before, but we cannot like directly generalize those results and outcomes to current situation. And yes, maybe there are some things that we can learn from previous examples, but I pretty much believe that nowadays we are living in a new normal situation that should be adopted by the business, that should be adopted by the governments, that should be adopted by the households and people generally. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And finally, Professor Mavlutova, and then we will ask Dr. Wolf's feedback about what you have heard and maybe additional points you could raise.
But actually, I have one question. First of all, thank you, Professor Wolf, for, in my opinion, good constructed and impressive presentation. And I have a question about Ostwald canvas model. We talked today that, yes, there are significant changes, and now we understand that it's necessary to change business models. Maybe it's okay. Maybe also it's necessary to put some changes into this fundamental model and make improvements of it.
Yes, there is no one definition of business models. There is also no one business model element suggested by researchers. So maybe to provide some critique from your point of view, yeah.
Thank you, Professor, for your question, and also my colleagues for the constructive comments. Yes, that's what I said at the beginning. Business model is probably one of the most sloppy terms you can find, because there is no agreement on what exactly it is, right? As Professor said from Georgia, I fully agree that change is the chance, no matter if you call it new normal or whatever, we are constantly going through change and we need to adapt. Digitalization is a good buzzword for all consultants because it creates new business. But I mean, let's be honest, at the end of the day, what is digitalization? It's simply change management. And change management is as old as businesses existed. We need to change. We need to rethink about business models. We have to add new aspects, new elements. And I'm sure this is a challenge for a lot of researchers to write very interesting business and academic articles about that because there is a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to ask you questions regarding, we discussed it a lot today about those new normal and global shocks which we experienced recently. And my question is to you, what lessons we can learn in teaching, researching, analyzing the impact of those large-scale serial crises? Thinking about new management approaches, thinking about new teaching approaches, and also might, as you are conducting research, how this attention has shifted to new directions under those global shocks. Yes, please.
Actually, from the very beginning of 2020, when we were experiencing a worldwide lockdown and we weren't able to visit each other's countries and share experiences like we're doing right now. It's my second visit after the pandemic. Actually, we had to move outside the box, and it was the very first thing that me and my team, as you may already know, I'm also working in one of the largest building materials producers in Georgia, and also I'm also involved in academic activities. So both on the professional level, like in my private company where I'm working as a chief financial officer, and at my university with my research team, we were thinking that we have to improve, and we have much less possibilities left because of the lockdown, but we have to move outside the box and see what else can we add to our daily activities, how we can reach our milestones and how we can achieve our benchmarks. And I think the very first thing that we realized was that we could do much more during normal life before the pandemic. And pandemic showed us that we could achieve much more before that, because right now we have doubled our milestones, we have doubled our activities both on the private company level and on the academia. Yeah.
Thank you. So you became stronger. Yes, later on. Yes,
I absolutely agree.
This is what Dr. Wolf was saying, there is opportunity as well, not only crisis, so you could become... Yes.
Every trouble creates new opportunities.
Yes, it's an anti-fragile approach. Okay, good. Maybe others, what are lessons learned in your activities or university activities, what you're doing after those shocks experienced?
Well, maybe I will try to approach this a bit differently, because I think that we should not overemphasize the effects of the context that has happened recently. Of course, they are important, but if we look in the history, things have happened before, and one thing that I think for sure can observe that the context is constantly changing, and is it changing huge amounts, or is it like a longer term change? But it is changing. It's just that different nations perceive it differently. Like for Chinese, change is maybe something they would observe more in 800 years. For us, we need a week, right? So, but regardless of how we look on this, the context is changing, and I think here comes the role of the university or the business analysts or all the other issues I mean, sustainability, so on and so forth, technology, everything that we have addressed in the conference during this today. Today, I mean, as long as I think that as long as people can think, as long as universities foster thinking, and the business world foster thinking, well, then we will survive the context change. And we are alive here, so that means we have survived, right? Many of us at least, and that's very good, right? So again, context change of the context is something that is inevitable, and yeah, we simply should deal with this in one way or another.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe I'm more pessimistic than Arnis, because I think we are going into what might be a more volatile world, where there is much more uncertainty than we have observed. So I would really like to address one of the key words in the title of today's conference, or this conference, uncertainty. And we really have to think about uncertainty as educators, how to prepare our students, graduates, for this uncertainty. And I think the best thing is you give them knowledge, and you give them some sort buzzword being agile, agility. So encourage them to be creative and think outside of the box. And I think if you look at what we observed during the pandemic, the companies, the educational institutions that were really kind of creative, thinking outside the box, they were the ones that did reasonably well, and I would say very well, given the circumstances. So I think this has, both the pandemic and the war, should have, hopefully it will also have, huge impact on the way we teach, because we have to prepare our graduates. The ones that graduate now, they will be in labor market more or less 50 years. And if you look back 50 years, out of those 50, 30 were fairly stable, but really they have to be prepared through knowledge, creativity, and so forth. Thanks.
Indeed, indeed. So, Professor Mavlutova and then Dr. Wolfs, maybe your reflection. Yeah.
Thank you. I also consider this crisis due to pandemic and now due to the war as actually opportunity for improvement of education elements. And here I think that not only our academic education is important, but nowadays we have to talk about lifelong learning exactly in such direction as financial sustainability, financial literacy with green aspects, with principles of circular economy, and also digitalization is important. For example, for financial literacy, now it's necessary use digital items, digital devices, and in this case it's necessary to promote financial literacy for elderly people. Also, when we talk about circular economy, also digital tools are very important for communication of groups or of the users of these circular economies. And what is important else? Yes, education is very important, but I think in social and economic development, it's necessary to turn to more to individuals, and it's necessary also to think about healthy lifestyle, physical well-being, and safety, and digital safety as well. And what pandemic showed that it's necessary to create a healthy lifestyle with a balance of work and leisure, nutrient, number of meals, physical activities. It's necessary to also think about regularity and use of financial resources for financial activities, recreation activities for different groups, for example, work teams, so workers of one organization, families, friend, especially in natural environment. Also, financial investments options, it's better to invest into health promotion and prevent diseases. And what is also very important to controlling and to also to prevent physical, emotional factors, and pandemic show this very brightly.
Very broad issues you raised that, we could talk days about how to ensure this because it's like a wish list. Yes, Dr. Wolfs, would you like to give some reflections on what's been said?
Oh my God, where are we gonna find lectures? Lectures need to know all this, need to be prepared for uncertainty, for a circular economy. Businesses cannot find workers anymore. I mean, universities, if we have to do all this, we'll never be able to find lectures and the faculty members anymore. So we need to make sure that we invest properly into our faculty, because we have so much expectations from our faculty, but are we also giving them the opportunities? Where are they going to learn circular economy? How are they going to learn about well-being? More important, not only learn the theory by reading the books, but from where do they get the experience? Make sure that we can follow andragogical principles and not pedagogical principles. And we need to teach a curriculum, which we don't even know that in 2 or 3 years, we will still have an impact on the society with our curriculum. So higher education will go through big challenges, and I think that it's going to be indeed a more than challenging time in the coming years. And the last thing I want to say is all of us, we were very flexible. We were able to adapt to hybrid learning. The only thing what hasn't followed is the legislative framework. The legislator has forgotten us a little bit. The educational sector was woken up and shaken up during the pandemic, but I think we should not forget that we are doing certain things for which we don't have a legal framework. And I think in an EU context, in a global context, legislators have to follow up on that and give us a broader framework to operate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, what you said, that expectations are increasing towards all actors in society, especially academia, but we know that we are also humans. Like Professor Mavlutova said, we need to ensure this work-life balance, but now expectations in all directions are increasing. Indeed, you highlighted the right topic. But now maybe we could switch to research agenda. As you experience it, researchers, and maybe the sustainability is an issue, and we have to contribute from university side to create new knowledge and to transfer new knowledge as well for this sustainability agenda, and also to increase resilience of societies, organizations, and individuals. Could you share your experience? What are the, let's say, hot topics now in research which might already attracted your attention, and you could say a few words about your research outcomes?
I'll go the first again. Frankly speaking, when I'm talking about the science, and the reason why I'm involved in scientific activities is that I believe in the science which creates practical products which can be used and which can influence and improve and make it more efficient our daily life. It's like in business activities or our daily life. From my personal perspective, like nowadays, digitalization, digital economy, circular economy are those topics that are like covering my mind. As you may already know, Georgia is a small country. We're small people, I would say, with big heart. And we're under constant aggression of our northern neighbor Russia, which has, from the dissolution of Soviet Union, which has occupied like 20% of Georgia's territory. So currently, from my personal perspective, I'm working on creating some sharing platforms and digital economy tools that would enable people who are on the other side of so-called Abkhazian and Southern Ossetian Republic to help them and involve them in our Georgian economy so that we can improve their life by engaging them in our healthcare system, in our educational system, in our just economic activities. So I know that it's very challenging because we daily see on TV shows, on like media, social media, that people are in jailed on the other side of the occupational line because of they are holding like Georgian flags or are saying to their friends that they want to reunite with Georgia and so on and so forth. So currently that's my number one target, to develop some tools that would enable people on the other side of the occupational border to join us in each and every direction.
Yes, indeed, if I may comment, because this is a shift of the new role of business as well, not to gain some financial value, but also to deliver social value, also including this environmental concern and benefits to society in large and so on. This means that also many doctoral students are now starting to research on this shared value as a new concept, so that companies deliver both social value and economic or financial value at the same time, because governments are not able to cover all these big issues right and now, so business need to come in and help it. Okay. Yes, hello, I see that one colleague has joined it, and could you introduce yourself, please, online?
Yeah.
Do you hear us?
Can you
Yes,
hear me?
please. Yes, yes, please, yes.
Hello, good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Bogdan. Here I'm presenting, how to say, both and the industry, IT industry, and I'm working as a project and program manager for Accenture Baltics. And actually, I'm working from Riga, but currently I'm joining from Vilnius office. Yeah, so this is part. Example of globalization, yeah, I would say, because if I would be in Riga those days, I definitely would join online, on site, I mean. And yeah, and also I'm visiting, I'm a lecturer in Reseba University and Riga Technical University, so yeah, trying to implement everything what we are doing in real industry, and to teach students and implement in research activities.
Thank you. You've been rather modest because you are a doctor, and I would like to introduce also with a full name, Bogdan Haidabrus, and thank you for joining us. And we already having discussion here around this topic for this panel, strategic resilience, navigating between pandemics, war realities, digital innovation, sustainability visions, and we have covered keywords, but we didn't speak yet about innovation. But currently we are talking about research agenda, what is now most fashionable, and maybe where attention could switch from this new reality. Who would like to add about this research agenda, and then we will go to innovation part of discussion.
Yeah, maybe
yes,
very short intervention. What I see and what I would like to see more of is actually research across fields, where we people in business management, economics, work together with colleagues in the natural sciences, because there I think in the joint set of knowledge and where we bring in our different competencies, we can really address many of these extremely complex sustainability issues, because no one has all the tools. We have to have kind of different disciplines addressing these issues.
Yes, yes, cross-disciplinary research from different science branches perspective. Inese, Mavlutova, and then
Yes.
Arnis, Sauka, yeah.
As I would like also to share with you that I also was involved in such multidisciplinary research, and actually it was the first study in Latvia to investigate the interaction between economic, social, and environmentally friendly behavior. The idea was to investigate the impact of COVID-19 on sustainable consumption behavior and circular economy. Yes, and we worked very hard within last year, and it was a project of Latvian Council of Science. And what we have done, the goal was to find out relation between COVID-19 lockdown and changes in behavior and attitudes. And we looked from four perspectives: from reasonable and responsible consumption, from sufficiency and circular economy, from direction of personal financial sustainability, and a healthy lifestyle and safety. And what is the main idea, the main finding, that actually pandemic has created and recreated huge number of consumption trends. And now it's necessary for both for businesses and for individuals recognize them and to expand in the future.
Thank you, Arnis.
We are already touching upon the issue that is not only important for universities, but also huge companies are thinking and working on this, namely how to organize the teams, how to organize the process of whatever, especially when it comes to the high tech and value added, to make this effective, to make it better, even better if with less resource than others, and thus to create this competitive advantage. And sometimes it requires having 100 economists maybe working on very, very tiny issue and going in depth, because it's very important to get to this. Sometimes, and this is also the way I prefer, it requires multidisciplinarity, right? Sometimes it requires something completely different, and that's why it's innovative. I mean, we would not know, and I would not like to put this in a box, and I would not like to say what is, in my opinion, the right way to create research. I definitely have not come to the right way of doing research myself, and I doubt that anybody has because it's also developing the process. But regardless, and what is I think important, as our Georgian colleague said, regardless of how we organize this process and hopefully we achieve the good result, time after time it's really good to go and open the window and to see what's going on outside. And if we look outside, we actually see that the world consists not just of these basic keywords that we sometimes also use in order to attract EU funding, right? Sometimes it's value creation, sometimes it's sustainability, sometimes it is sustainability, whatever. These are different. These words are changing, right? But the world consists of also other things, and I think as long as we as researchers pick up one of those things that are related to this outside world, but not the one that is brought to us we should do, but the one that we, from the heart like to do. I think this is where this result will come out, and then this product that is created in this nice environment, regardless of how it works, right here, if it's brought outside, then it will add more to value, and then the outside will also contribute to this research output. At least this is the way I prefer to work, and some of the projects I've been involved, research projects are I think follows this type of approach. On the other hand, if there is no capacity of any of us researchers to go to this window and open it, which is also fine, right? It's not everybody wants to do this. Well, then the management should bring in somebody through the door or chimney or whatever, and still bring this knowledge out. Because otherwise, if you, and this is what I also keep saying to some of the PhD students I have a pleasure to supervise. If you sit inside the room and think on your own, you will think, you know, just as much as you can. Go out, talk, present, discuss, then the value will be sort of added in a bigger manner. And I think we all agree here that that what we do internally should be also important to someone else, not just us.
Yes. So, dear Dr. Wolf or Dr. Heidabrus, would you like to add something what been said already?
Well, if you look at the research output, I can see that the world was not sitting still. So people were in a lockdown on a global scale, but a lot of countries have been doing research. And the message is not so positive for Europe, unfortunately, because if you see if we link research with patent applications for new products or services, you can see that there is a huge increase coming from China and from the USA, and that we Europeans wrote a lot of things, but we did not apply for a lot of patents compared percentage-wise compared to the two other major nations. So we are, instead of creating an advantage, a little bit of disadvantage. And the major reason why we as Europeans are not so innovative is the wrong mentality. If I am a little Mark and I want to create a new company called Face with a little bit of books, you know, and I fail, what do the Americans say? Oh, look there at little Mark. He tried to start a company. Unfortunately, he failed, but we hope he tried again. And little Mark only needs in Delaware, by the way, the place of President Biden, $29 to start the business. If we do that in Europe and we want to be the most innovative continent on earth with all the technological parks and research parks, and we invest millions of subsidies for that with the wrong mentality. First of all, a huge hurdle of capital. Secondly, we have the wrong mentality. Because if we fail, they look at that and say, oh, look at little Bert, the loser. He tried to start a company, he didn't even succeed. What a loser. And the rest of his life, Bert has to pay off his debt. With this mentality, we're not going to go forward, we'll not be becoming more innovative, and will not be creating a new competitive advantage.
Good observation. You see really this mentality and attitude and how society looks to those who are starting something new. But I would like to ask Dr. Heidabrus and Bogdan, what is your point of view about what Dr. Wolf was saying? Do you agree or disagree that there is still space for innovative business or digital innovations in this regard in spite of those tries and errors and failing issues?
How I can disagree with Dr. Wolf? It's not possible. Definitely this is one approach. Might be, why not? But from my side, I would say, from my experience, regarding the research, when I was a researcher in different universities and different countries, etc. And what I can say that we need to just pay attention always that why we are doing research. Research not because of the research. So we need to invest in research to grow economy, country's economy, world economy. And I really like this term, knowledge intensive economy. And actually, when we are investing in economy and in companies, companies should invest in the research and innovation. And this is the main point we need to do. So the research should help us to create new industries. This is my point.
Yes, good point. And as we already moving into innovation, so this innovation buzzword somebody saying, you know, this is the first time innovation being created as a term in 15th century. And still, you know, researchers are discussing what is innovation. If there would be enough time, we could discuss among ourselves how we understand what innovation is. But nevertheless, these global shocks have triggered these different types of innovations going on. And I would like to ask Bogdan, maybe digital innovation. Could you explain what is a digital innovation? Have you came across such term?
We can use many terms, yeah, but we need to agree and align what does it mean, yeah. So we can say digitalization, we can say information technologies, etc., etc. And nowadays, can something be outside of digital, outside of IT? I don't know actually. I think that everything what we are touching is regarding to those terms, yeah. And definitely regarding the innovation, from the basic points, innovation when we provide something new, yeah. And nowadays we are providing new. It's easiest way to provide something new in IT field, yeah, in digital field. So yeah, it's quite easiest way. And also, and what I wanted to say that if we are if we are investing in modern digital projects, in modern IT projects, so definitely it increase our performance in a lot of ways. So yeah, this is my point.
Somebody else regarding the role of innovation to ensure sustainable development and also building resilient societies. Please, Arnis.
Yeah, it's very difficult to talk about innovation in front of you, Professor, because you're probably the smartest person I know, at least in Latvia, in innovation field. But I hope you would agree to me, at least to some extent, that there are two types of innovations. One is what comes with adjustment, right? For instance, we have to adjust to the context of the COVID, and for this we are using digital tools, more extent, different type of tools, right? So we are adjusting to what the context brings. On the other hand, at some point, these digital tools were created themselves for the sake of changing maybe the context, right? So this is different type of innovation. We could think of aliens coming to the Earth or having a threat from them, you know, something utopic at some point, at this point, but you know, this could happen. We could have a threat from other planets, and then we would need to innovate in order to create spaceships, or we can innovate technology to create technology of the spaceships now, and that and thus change the context and maybe be the first ones to you know, to protect ourselves or whatever we do. So and I mean, eventually it is changing things in one way or another, and it becomes a norm, you know, whatever it means. We could have the same discussion about the normalities in a same manner as what the innovation is, and this is why it is never. This is why I think it is from the 15th century. It will remain for centuries to come, because the context, either it's a push or pull or whatever you call it, it will be changing, and thus the role of innovation will remain in one way or another important.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, please, Bogdan.
One of my favorite quotes, the electric light did not come from the continuous improvement of candles. So when we're thinking of innovations, we're not only thinking of creating something new, but we can look at existing things from a different angle and make the processes more like efficient, more sustainable in a different way, in a different structure. So I believe that in a world which is more conservative than innovative, I think it's a term to push, and especially from academia.
Mm-hmm. Good. Somebody else from online, Dr. Wolfs, regarding your way to look what the role of innovation it's playing in order to increase resilience and to ensure sustainability in the future.
Well, innovation, what is innovation? It's invention plus commercialization, very simply said. Look at Latvia. You are very strong regarding sustainability, but nobody in the world knows almost. So there is a lack of commercialization of your sustainable advantage as a country with your parks, with enough water, etc., etc. You have all these advantages, but the world doesn't know. So that is two aspects which need to be done. And secondly, we always talk about innovation and think immediately about transnational corporations, but I would say innovation is also linked again to the environment of where is the possibility of creating small and medium-sized companies, where there is an environment which fosters startups. If that is not there, plus a change of mentality, then we can talk a lot about innovation, but we will have no tangible results.
Thank you for saying good words about Latvia. Indeed, we do have many different types of innovations, innovative companies, but the communication is lacking even inside the country, but for outside world it should be known even more. Yes, yes, please. Yeah.
Maybe some remarks more practical. In my opinion, where we can weight innovation. We can weight innovation, for example, in supply chains, especially for food supply chains. And also in development of circular economy in such direction as produce of high quality durable products, and after that to extend the life cycle of these products. And also I see possibilities for further innovation also in fintech industry. It is high developed industry, but in my opinion it's possible to introduce something new in financial services as well.
Yeah, good point. And then we could go further on this. And what is the role of government in order to foster these new models, new approaches, delivering, value to wider society, and how governments could help business and also academic to be more innovative? What is the role of government?
Okay. Before moving to private sector, I have been working in Georgia's Innovations and Technology Agency, which is a governmental institution under the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. So for some time, I was working there with various startups to help them to improve their financial results, to help them to develop, go outside the border, commercialize, and so on and so forth. But the thing that I came up to is that I see the role of the government more to create incentives for those startups rather than to give directly the free money. You can take it and do whatever you want, just and by the way, not caring about the results. So I believe that if the government can create an incentive so that they can involve the private sector, so that with the venture capital, who would assess the projects from their perspectives and their profitability and the innovational perspective also, I think it could bring the results much more faster than under the government control. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I would agree with that, because if you see the amount of money which we spent in startups and the final results or how few of these companies survive, it's a little bit shocking to see. So maybe a change for governments would be to invest indeed and stimulate more in scale-ups rather than in startups. Sorry.
It's very much along the lines that I was about to mention, that first of all, I think government should engage in what should we call it, institutional reform, the overall framework. So we have a tax code, for example, that is easy to understand, a kind of legislation when it comes to property rights and so forth. And really what I do not want to see is that we have a committee of government people that are supposed to pick winners, and that we know will be total waste of money. So I'm very much in favor of, like what's just mentioned, that when you have something that seems to fly, support it so you can scale it up, you can go abroad, but do not engage in picking winners, because why should government people be able to do something that no one else is able to do, that is to predict the future?
Yes, yes, please, Professor.
I completely agree with both opinions, and I think that the main challenge is that sometimes governments act as if they are in charge, meaning, well, of course they are, but we are all in some way or another in charge of something. But being in charge sometimes is interpreted in a way that, as Anders said, picking winners or directing someone. I mean, you will have this specialization, you will do, this, you will produce that. But why should I wake up doing something that someone else wants? Why don't you give me an opportunity to do what I would like to do myself, right? And this would apply both to the smaller organizations, but it could also go to the macro level and very much international. So to me, I think if the government is able to create the infrastructure in a very wide meaning of this word, not just the streets, legislation, roads, internet cables, infrastructure in general, environment that allows to do things, whatever, right? And plus, as you said, incentives to do what is the best for the economy. So to me, that would be the government I would love to see, all over the place.
Thank you so much. And now we return back to our key word of the conference, it's resilience. And this resilience also should be understood, and discussions what we understand by resilience. But from theoretical point of view, this resilience goes around operational resilience, that we have to be able to navigate today, as Arnis said, to stay alive, to survive. But also we have not to lose this future side, where we are going, it's about strategic resilience, and both together, operational resilience plus strategic resilience brings organizational resilience at the end. Yes, like a sum of those activities, and it requires certain ambidexterity from managers and also responsible, officials to have this, to be good at both hands, looking, what's happening now, and to ensure and to see what are the next maybe opportunities and threats are coming. And this requires a future vision and also such capability as foresight capability. In Arab Emirates, they do have already vision for the country development until 2070. And they have artificial intelligence minister in place. And so we don't have such far vision, but nevertheless, this is very important to understand, yes, what kind of future is evolving and what we can learn from these trends or weak signals, what we see and observe to empower the future which we are willing to achieve, desirable future. Do you think those both sides are well presented in companies or organizations? And maybe we could start from Bogdan, from IT perspective. What are the future tools and approaches? Maybe we have to think about 5 years ahead, what will be IT state, or maybe 10 years ahead. And discussion could be maybe humans will be not needed, and there is like AI and all these nice tools, technical, will be helping to do more and more jobs what currently we are doing, and what kind of decisions we need to make today.
Yes, great topic. Let me share what I have in my mind quickly. Yeah, I can speak on it hours, but just very simple that all those AI, data science, data analysis tools, etc., for predicting, this is just a supporting case to humans. Yeah, so it's not it's not separate. It's not separate activities. So we need to implement those solutions in our needs. So this is the main point. And yeah, we are using mathematics for that, analysis method, data science, etc., etc. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. Can we predict what will be in 5 years? To be honest, I don't know, because 4 years ago I was working in Ukraine in data science project. We can talk about artificial intelligence, etc., etc. But now we have war in the world, and where's our artificial intelligence right now in that case? So we don't know really what will be in the future. So my philosophy is just doing step by step, and just to try to make very concrete examples what we need to improve, what we need to in which sector we need to invest in building AI, using data analysis, just for solving simple business cases. So this might be one of the success. And definitely in the future, and also the last thing, sorry for interrupting you, the last thing, that data-driven economy, build the data-driven economy. Yeah.
Dr. Wolfs, about 5-10 years ahead, what life we will live and what we need to do to live better life?
Oh, that's all. That's a question of mindset. The life is good today, so because the mindset is good. What would be better? If we're happy today, it can only get better in the future. Yes, data mining and data analytics is the new oil or the new alternative energy for the future. And I think that artificial intelligence will have a positive impact on the society if it can take over repetitive jobs. Which are done by humans and can be done by computers in the future. But there's still a sign of warning I would like to share, is that the improvement of data science, robotics, and all this is still going to create a huge social, I would say, damage on our society, because a lot of people do not have the necessary skills and competencies to be employed in the new normal, in the new world. And if we, and as a government, does not provide training programs for that, it will take a long time of unemployment, uncertainty, social unrest before these people can be integrated into the economy again. So that is one thing we should take into consideration. Number two, what I see is that technology is very strong, but technology cannot do one thing, that is, it cannot present the data and it cannot interpret the data. So we'll still need humans for that. And unfortunately, I cannot find storytellers of data. If you find one, if you have one, please send them to me, because I cannot find anywhere in the world 10 decent, competent storytellers of data. And that's a lack, which I think also the education world and academia have a huge responsibility on training people. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Maybe colleagues here in the panel about ideas and what needs to be stressed out, and also in academic preparing our students and ourselves for better future.
Yeah, sure. Comment here on resilience, and it was mentioned beginning of the discussion that government, in terms of education, Ministry of Education, is not really up to date, that we at universities, academic institutions, we've been able to deal, I would say, fairly well with the COVID crisis, but many of us were actually violating a lot of regulations, and we see it more or less everywhere, that the regulatory framework puts restrictions on us and also on other organizations. So if we should have a more resilient society, we also have to have legislation that allows for that. Labor legislation, for example, is a tricky one. in that sense. And also was mentioned here, which I think is extremely important, that we also need to educate. So coming back to the lifelong learning issue here, which is a role that I envisage where kind of for us to be more and more important as educators, that we have play an important role in lifelong learning.
Yes, what you are saying, it's about trust building as well, because if we trust societies, then we will need less regulations, maybe very detailed one, but it doesn't come overnight. No. Yes, and you are coming from Scandinavian countries. We visited Noja, and they told that we have built this trust in society already starting from 1970s. From kindergarten and up, you know. And they say, yes, we trust you, but of course at the same time we watch you, and in case you don't behave accordingly, we have certain rules in place what to deal with this. And this is a really gap, and we feel here as well about this bureaucracy, and trust is not in the center in society. Please.
Yeah, but maybe just to complement what Anders just said and what you are also discussing, maybe this is the reason why all the reforms, as we call it here, should start with reforming the ones who are implementing them, or at least educating them, right? Because otherwise, these are just strategies, these are just plans, and nothing else. And we can create very easily here the plans for coming to 200 years. Who will implement them? Not just regulators, but also universities, private sector, whoever. So. Thus we are talking about this change, this innovation, as we discussed initially. Because to me, I think, and what we've seen in many developing countries, there were things that are sort of intended with good, thinking about a good change, but if it's not done by correct or right people, so to say, not the people themselves, but the level they are in, what they are capable of doing, then sometimes it's better not to do anything than to try to create this change.
Yes, thank you so much. And there are still time for discussion, but maybe you would like to ask some questions to each other, or maybe put new aspects about this resilience uncertainty, because uncertainty really it's growing, and it will be growing in the future. Maybe already in 17th century they said that it's uncertain world, but now with the scale and exponential growth in areas and different shocks impacted, and there is an uncertainty. We don't know what kind of uncertainty will appear, how it will affect us, and how our response will affect, this context we are living. Yes, please, Professor.
So, Professor Moderator, what do you think about all this?
What I'm thinking, I'm really following discussions what's going on about those topics we are talking, and yes, we need to prepare resilient societies as we discuss it, and it comes from individual, and it comes on organizational level, family, and also national and regional. And today Professor Hala Sinos said really very good implications for coming future, what we need to watch, and he has done some analysis. But in addition to that, I have to say that the biggest responsibility it's in our shoulders in universities, what kind of new generation we are educating, for what kind of jobs we are educating, and also what about updating. I agree with Dr. Wolfs about our as a faculty members skills and investments in our professional development, because we have to do additional job outside auditoriums, and investing much efforts into our skills update, and also doing this research in addition, and to be very much in those projects. Too much pressure on this academia we could feel, and I always say to my colleagues, and they know, and maybe to relieve additional secret, and Bert Wolfs knows about Harvard Graduate School of Education, and there are professors who having 4 assistants. And then I asked, what's 4 for? You know, one is helping with research, another with academic activities, the third is promoting professors outside to go for conferences and to build reputation and good name. And I asked, what is a fourth for? And fourth is a private assistant, you know, in case you would like to continue some good discussions, new people have met. So it means that we are under-resourced as universities, and it's not only from faculty staff point of view. And this Bologna process, which requires student-centered learning, it brings, you know, additional time you need to devote for individuals. It means that education is becoming more expensive, but we don't have necessary or not only maybe in some cases skills and competencies to teach these new subjects, but also
Economics.
economics.
Yeah. Do you know the definition of economics? Probably do, right? Anders
Yes,
does.
macro and macroeconomics.
No,
We are doing
it's
this.
it's about limited resources and
Yeah. And the efficiency and productivity as well. Yes, we have to work under those limited resources, but it's in the recent years in Latvia, it's been highlighted many times in comparison with other countries, universities is under-resourced. But nevertheless, we have to stay positive and to have positive outlook. And the last question maybe to all of you, what I felt, because I'm traveling around the world for evaluating universities in Africa, Latin American, Asian countries, and what we discuss always in these expert panels, that we have not enough discussions about these future skills, competencies, what will be needed in the coming 6-10 years. It's already many research going on, but what kind of curricula we have to build. We touched those issues today, but in order to be good at delivering what we expected, there should be more discussions with public and private sector together about it's our joint and shared responsibility for what future we are preparing our students and what new skills and updates, yes, curricula is needed, and also our way we are teaching. So, and now I will give you opportunity to conclude, and each of you have to say, you know, some final thoughts before we finish our nice discussion here. And I will start with Dr. Wolf, and then we will go here in the panel. Yes, maybe final reflection on the topics we discussed.
Interesting discussion. Thank you very much. It's always helpful because you learn always something new. So, my colleagues had an impact on me today, which I appreciate. And maybe to finish with a tasty note, I would like to know from my colleague from Georgia, what is the most innovative idea in the Georgian wine industry today? Thank you.
Please repeat, but in which industry we didn't hear properly? Wine.
What is the most innovative idea in the Georgian wine industry?
Okay, good. You know, we are here academics, we don't think about these things during work, you know. That's why okay, please.
Yeah, actually, you're lucky because I was also working in largest winemaking companies in Georgia. So currently, actually, me and my students, we are like developing an idea to implement some circular economy practices in winemaking industry, and I have a good friend in University of Granada, Professor Valentin, who has the same project done on the olive oil. So we're going to implement some circular economy issues in Georgian winemaking industry, which may not be a novelty throughout like developed world, but in Georgia it will definitely be. And I am pretty sure that I will host you in Georgia on a glass of white dry wine.
Thank you. Yes, and yes, please go ahead, Bogdan. Your maybe some final remarks before we end the session and discussion.
About the wine in Georgia. Yeah. So definitely I would say that the very great topics we discussed important and up to date. And the main conclusion for me and what I'm sharing to colleagues that we have to work more and more and more regarding the creative new innovations, creating the new researchers, industry-oriented researchers, and to help each other grows and be better. So this is the main conclusion what I can say.
Yes, Bogdan, there is such a saying, don't say that you are working hard, show me results. And might we have not to work more but smarter, less but with a higher added value, because we have tools now, digital tools and so on, and to make smarter decisions in order to work less. Yes, to enjoy life too, because there will be no time for drinking wine then. Yes, if we will work more and more. But thank you. So, Inese, please, Professor Mavlutova.
Thanks. So I talked today mostly about consumption, about individuals, and I think we should start with ourselves. So we should to think about personal financial sustainability, about healthy lifestyle. We should be responsible in consumption, for example, to promote seasonal consumption, to consumption of organic products, think about also green priorities in our consumption. So start with ourselves, and we will teach our students how to do it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So please, Arnis, yeah.
Well, maybe just to conclude, I think, well, I'm pretty sure actually that what distinguishes rather relatively young, recent novice researcher from the more experienced one is that the younger one would try to highlight in the end of the presentation or at the end of the paper how good and how innovative this paper or whatever was. The more experienced researchers would let others decide whether it was useful or not. So I hope that some of it, at least, that we have discussed here was useful for at least someone. And finally, when it comes to the wine, since we started to touch upon this, I mean, we are academicians, we know everything about wine, of course, and some of us even know how to do this in a sustainable manner. No, not all of us, unfortunately, right? But nevertheless, this is not conceptual discussion, this is empirical thing to do, which we probably should do in 10 minutes once we conclude.
Okay, I took a lot of notes here, and I kind of having my administrator's hat on, I think from university administration point of view, it's really the role of the faculty in the future and the resources we have to invest there, and kind of a bit reflection on what you mentioned, Tatjana, in terms of resources. If we go back 20, 30 years in time, the list from the government of what we were supposed to do those days was this short. Now it's kind of 5 times longer, and resources are probably actually less now than then. So we have to be realistic, and we have actually to convince the ones who pay for it, be it students or be it government, that if we're going to do what we are supposed to do, then it will cost money, and we are not magicians, so we cannot create this tree that gives us golden apples every day. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, when you say that we are not magicians, but so far, we are pretending that, yes, we can, yes, but in the same time, yes, it's living in some illusions, and leaving government to think that those requirements they are putting on our shoulders, it's doable, but in reality, yes, it's not up to the extent of the quality expected and so on, but it's good. It should be more transparent message that for that amount of money we can do this and this, but don't expect us to bring magic in the work. Yes, and maybe the final word also to our colleague from Georgia.
Yeah, actually, I would love to thank my co-panelists for a wonderful discussion, and our colleagues who are joining us online, and all of you and the organizers for such a fruitful event, I would say. To summarize several issues, I would say that the main problem that I see in the educational system, especially in post-Soviet countries, is that it is still mostly centralized, and I think it's a problem. And during the past years, we are bringing more Western universities in our countries. In Georgia, we are opening like American, United Kingdom universities, the branches of those universities. So we're implementing new practice, and I think it's one of the key points how we can change the Soviet minds in those countries, because for example, my country was under the Soviet Union for 70 years, while the life expectancy was 66 years. So the people were born in Soviet Union and dead and passed away, so that they could not understand what the freedom meant really. I believe like Latvia was much less, like around 50 years. That's why I think you are doing much better in many things rather than Georgia, but I think in the nearest future we can catch up with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Dr. Wolfs, you asked the question about, but maybe you have to say also a few reflections and to conclude what you really would like to share. Yes, being here with us today. But thank you, really, we appreciate both that you joined online.
Thank you very much. As I said before, it was a very fruitful discussion from which I learned a lot. And if you can have a positive impact on someone every day, you're doing a good job. And I'm very grateful to my colleagues. I know that we are going to train some magicians who can do unexpected things for the government and the society. And we should be grateful for all talented people who want to become a faculty member and want to share their life experience with the students. As long as we do it in an andragogical way, nothing can go wrong. Thank you.
Good, good, good. Thank you so much. And also from my side, I'm very, very thankful for you that you really found the time to come here and you are so open-minded and really engaged into those discussions. And Bogdan, specific thanks to you goes because you also are coming from Ukraine. We all are following and really hope for the best for your country and all your people. And thank you all. And now I would like to ask our organizer to come here and to conclude this first day of the conference. And please, yes.
Thank you to everybody for a very fruitful and great discussion and hard work. And as award certificate to Dr. Wolfs and Dr. Heidebrus virtually. And for other colleagues physically. Thank you for patience. Yeah, and tomorrow not for all audience, but for special audience, we will continue our conference in parallel sessions. So thank you.
Yes, and this is all for today. And thank you for all supporters and technical staff who help it. And I hope that audience who is listening online also got a rewarded day and learned something new. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much and enjoy your Georgian or Latvian wine.
Will do, because we are leaving to Georgia. Yes, soon also. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And don't forget about Riga balsams.
How we can forget, you know? Yes, never.